1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, and welcome back to It's Not a Sport Season 4, Episode 1. That is right. We are finally back at it with a new season. A lot of topics lined up I have for you. It's going to be a great year, for gaming, for esports, for everything. I've been thinking a lot on some things and I got some great shows lined up for you. So look forward to it because we're going to talk about it real quick. We also got the new art, and check out our social media as well. You can find those if you're watching our YouTube channel and actually watching the VOD of the podcast. They're down below it in the description and on the screen now. But for you, those of you listening, they are itsnotasport.com. That's where you can find all the podcasts, all the content, and our articles, which we're about to check out in a second. If you're watching the VOD on YouTube, we also have It's Not a Sport to You. That's our Instagram and our Twitter. We'll update and announcements and really cool things, and I'll talk about, and just some of my thoughts will go up on there. And of course, if you want to listen to the show, you can find us on our SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, and our YouTube. They all go up at the same time on the same day, so definitely check those out, and our previous seasons as well, because there's still some really good talks, and I plan on updating some of those old talks as well. So let's get into the show real quick. And I just want to tell everybody, if you haven't already, check out the website, really, because even though on the VOD right now, this is old art and I have yet to update it because I'm pre-recording this, but I have added articles over the break, and I've written some really good articles that I'm very proud of that I think you guys should all check out if you're interested in. The first one being the Ghost of Tsushima review, which was definitely my game of the year for 2020. It came in late for the show, so I wasn't able to play it, but I played it over break and I loved it a lot. Of course, we also had the release of Cyberpunk 2077 and all the drama that came out of there. My review is also up on that game as well. And a little special thing, the inspiration of the Soul series, the Dark Souls series, which I've just beat in Bloodborne, and I also got to read Berserk, which is definitely flew up there on my manga charts that you should definitely check out. So if you want to read those articles, they are up in the website right now. Link is in the description, and expect more articles going forward. With that out of the way, I also want to talk about some talks and future episodes that will be coming up. I want to talk about Blizzard and kind of their inspiration. I want to talk about Berserk, definitely, because I think it is a medium and a platform and just an art that is so inspirational that everyone needs to check out. I want to talk about the news we missed. That will be later on in this episode, probably a very long segment. Of course, esports has already started, and I'm really late on that. But we will go over all of that, see who wins, see who hasn't, in case you've missed esports in general. And I want to talk about, other than Berserk, I want to talk about Ubisoft. Ubisoft has some really interesting games. I want to talk about how they've been keep making the same game over and over again. So those are just teensy witsy talks that will be coming in future episodes, so look forward to that. So with further ado, what's the main question of this week's show's talk? What's the first show of season 4? What are we going to be talking about? Well, over the break, I was asked a very, very interesting question. And that question was, when did games stop being fun for me? Now, of course, I asked this question to you guys. When did games stop being fun for you? Please leave a like and description in the comment, and I'd love to hear your responses. But for me, it really goes back to one game in Pacific, and that would be 2016's No Man's Sky. That's right. Hello Games, this No Man's Sky came out August 9th, 2016, was when games stopped being fun for me. And I would argue that's when games stopped being fun for the industry as a whole. Now, if you don't know the history behind this game came out and it was extremely hyped up. The trailers were phenomenal. You were supposed to be a space explorer. It was like Minecraft in space. It was supposed to be really, really big game, and everyone was hyped for it. But when it came out, there was a disappointment. It didn't have any of those features. It didn't have multiplayer. You couldn't build your own house or resources. You were just flying a ship to planet to planet, and it was a huge disappointment for consumers as a whole. And this is the point where developers figured out, and mostly publishers figured out, that they could be greedy with what they release, and consumers figured out that we have to be very defensive. And it's got us into this weird cycle where I think is now. Before that, I just remember I used to go, pick up when Dishonored came out, just pick up Dishonored, played it. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I never had to think about what games I was going to play, whether I want to spend money to play those games, and if I was going to drop them or enjoy them at the end of the day. I never thought about that. And now I think about that consistently. Before I pick up a game, I do my research, I see what people are saying, which spoils the experience to some degree. And then I pick it up. Then I, decide for myself whether I want it or I don't want it. It's an experience that I wish I didn't have to go through, but we have to go through just because we keep getting unfinished products. Now, in No Man's Sky defense, it has changed dramatically since its launch. I think they just launched a companion update at the time of recording this, where now you can have like a pet or something, and the game has evolved dramatically over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 years, and it is just an entirely different game than it was on release. And that goes for most games that I'm going to talk about today on this list, that they've changed so much because now we live in a time where games are a service. They get updated consistently over the course of many years. You don't just straight up abandon it. They become stronger as time goes on, and that may be a benefit for in long term, but short term, because of these products, it's very bad. So what happened after 2016? Well, we went into 2017 and we got 2 big games that were kind of fell under short and lowered a lot of fans' expectations. On March 21st, 2017, we got Mass Effect Andromeda, which was the prequel to the famous Mass Effect trilogy. And that game came out by BioWare, and it was a flop. It was terrible. A lot of people didn't like it. It was bad. It was buggy, among other things. It was just a failure of a game. And from there, they abandoned this game, and of course they went on to make the legend that is Anthem, which I don't think anyone needs to hear anything about. So this game came out and it failed. But we had a bigger game from the same publisher that came out this year as well, and that would be Star Wars Battlefront 2, which, again, in its defense, now in 2021, the game has redeemed itself so far that it is not the game on release. It has so much free content now, so many different things you can do, so many new heroes, new maps from all sagas and generations of Star Wars now, that it is a completely different game than it was on launch. But when it came out, it was faced with harsh criticism from the microtransactions and the loot box fiasco, which really ramped up around this time in 2017. Now, this game had hard criticism, not just because of loot boxes and the microtransactions, but also because before that, the game was at E3, it was a completely different game, and everyone was really digging it. And then when it came out, it had all these features that nobody asked for or wanted. But the point being is that this is when the loot box problem kind of came into the light of things in the gaming industry, and people started complaining about loot boxes, complaining about microtransactions. This is when it happened. So that's why I think I pinpointed back to No Man's Sky's 2016. Of course, too, and I skipped over this, we have the CSGO gambling ring fiasco with YouTube and CSGO Lotto. If you don't know what this is, some YouTubers were rigging CSGO gambling sites. This still goes on today, of course, but this is when it started to happen in 2016, which was a huge thing for the gaming industry because, again, the loot box fiasco was happening at the same time and was starting to happen. from there, and I'm going to skip a couple years here, we go to 2019. In 2018, there wasn't really a whole lot of drama. We were still feeling the fallback of loot boxes and CSGO gambling and just unfinished products as a whole in general. But we get to 2019, I think this is when we start to feel crunch. We had this article that came out in Polygon, which was huge when Fortnite really found its big success in 2017. We were finding like, oh, Fortnite has so much crunch, an industry crunch, and that they are working these developers to the bone, which was huge for the gaming industry. And even now, with the release of we had Last of Us Part 2, we heard that they were crunching the entire time with that game before it came out. And it's still such a huge problem in the industry that these guys are still crunching out games, which they honestly shouldn't. Even, which we're going to get to in a second, Cyberpunk 2077, which of course, they said, CD Projekt Red went out and said that they were not going to crunch, and they ended up crunching anyway at the end of it. So a lot of things there. We also saw a lot of things of sexual misconduct in the workplace. This just came to mind. Riot Games suffered a couple lawsuits because of this, and I think they're still suffering a lot of lawsuits because of this. And that's a huge thing that also happened around this time within the course of these couple of years. And now we get to kind of our final big, most recent breaking point before we get on to our next talk, and that would be how Cyberpunk came out as an unfinished project. Of course, if you, again, I recommend go read my review because I talk about it there a lot, but this was it. This game was hyped up probably a little too much, and it was a buggy mess. It did not run on base consoles at all. PlayStation ended up refunding it and taking it off the market, which I'm pretty sure it's still not up there today. I may be wrong about that, but as far as I know, it's still not. You can't buy it on the base PS4. It was really buggy. It was really bad. It was incomplete. It was just a mess of a game. CD Projekt, and it was. Let me tell you how hyped this game was. Is that it was so hyped that CD Projekt Red's investors ended up suing the company or going under a lawsuit because of it. So this game was so hyped, and they still released it as an unfinished product even after it got delayed like 2-3 times. And if they delayed it more, people wouldn't be mad. It would just, we just want a game where it's a finished product. And if you want to add more after that, whether you want to make us pay for it or for free, then that's their choice. The base problem is that we want a game that is finished and complete. And now you don't get that. Now it's very difficult to get that. This is what 2016, I think, is when it started, is when video games for me stopped being fun, where I have to look out for these games and ask myself, do I want to, is it worth paying $60 for this game? Is it worth it? How bad is it? Because I absolutely love Mass Effect. It's one of my favorite trilogies, and I'm very hyped that they're remaking it. I love Star Wars. If anyone who knows me, who's had a conversation with me, knows that Star Wars is one of my most passionate franchises and one of the biggest ones out there. And I'm very, very concerned that Disney's making more spin-offs for it after The Mandalorian. It's nice, but it's concerning. Do we need them? Things like that. And I love Cyberpunk, and I was promised like a really cool Blade Runner experience in having replayed The Witcher, which was buggy on release, of course, but it was a finished product. Having replayed The Witcher earlier this 2020, getting Cyberpunk and how bad and incomplete it was a disappointment. And again, read my review for all of my thoughts on that. With that being said, I would really like to know, when did video games stop being fun for you? There's a lot of different aspects, and I think that you can look at whether it's corporate video games, which is what I'm kind of talking about. But recently, I've been also inspecting the indie scene, and indie scene's completely different because they don't get a lot of respect that I think they deserve. And some of their games are fun and some of their games aren't fun. But again, you still have to look at those concerns, because now in the back of the mind, we've been programmed to think, how can we inspect this game before we buy it? Because there's going to be something wrong with it. How are they going to scam us before we buy it? And again, to fix this problem, I think we just got to speak with our wallets, really, which is, it's not going to happen, but we have to think about it. Because when I'm in the dentist And my dentist, a dude who told me doesn't interact with video games at all, like most people don't interact with video games, never played a video game, never touched a video game, and they come to me and they know about how fucked up Cyberpunk was and how it came out as a buggy mess, then we know that as an industry, as a whole, as a community, we may have a problem on our hands and that we need to fix it now. And I hope you enjoyed this week's talk. It's been good. I really enjoyed doing it. And now we get into kind of the dreadful part of the show, but kind of the update part of the show as well, the news. Now, there's been a lot of news over the last couple of months since we've been off the air, and I'm not going to cover all of it. Just things that I think are worthwhile and worth talking about. We're also going to cover esports at the very end. So if you're interested in the esports section and what's going on there, skip to the end. I'll probably put a timestamp in the description or somewhere just to make your life a little bit easier. With that being said, let's get into this week's news, or the last couple months' news. So first off, I want to talk about Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's gone gold. Mass Effect, if you haven't played it, it's one of the best sci-fi RPGs ever made. It is basically video game Star Wars is how it is. It redid sci-fi and it redid RPGs, and it's really what put BioWare on the map alongside Dragon Age. So if you haven't had a chance to play these games, definitely pick this up when it comes out, because this is all 3 of the games, not including the bad Andromeda that we don't talk about. After that, we have Deathloop, cool game made by the same studio who made Dishonored, and it looks like it got delayed, which is really sad. It got delayed till September 14th of this year. It was looking kind of cool. It was looking interesting. I'm always down for a game with, a black protagonist. We need more of those out here now. So seeing that, it's sad that it gets delayed, but delays make a game better unless you're Cyberpunk. Then we have the announcement of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 6 anime. If you've never seen JoJo or read it, which I honestly just recommend reading it, it is one of my favorite mangas out there. It's funny, it's action-packed. Everyone heard of JoJo references. And Part 6, while it may not be my favorite part, it is an interesting part that if you read it, it's a part where he uses this part to reset his formula. The next part after this, Part 7, is one of his most well-written pieces of work. And then after that, which is the current part that we're on, Part 8, is also really good. And how he uses Part 6 to reset the world is something that we don't see in a lot of writing and writers just in general. So look forward to this. This is going to be good. Definitely something to put on your radar, and you can start watching all the previous parts up to 6 right now. Call of Duty mobile dev makers made $10 billion in 2020. That's a lot of freaking money. $10 billion for Call of Duty mobile app. This just goes to show, and what I've talked about 1,000 times on this show, how mobile games are so much bigger than we think they are. They impact just the market. Everyone has a phone. Everyone's playing mobile game. Everyone knows Call of Duty. Everyone wants to play Call of Duty. It's no wonder they made this much money. It is phenomenal how this works. So definitely really look into mobile games more. I recommend going to the top grossing, especially if you're a designer like me, and just looking at what are people playing. We also have Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga got delayed again. This one is sad to see. If you ever never played a Lego Star Wars game, I recommend you play them when this comes out, especially all the Lego Star Wars games. There's a lot of fun. They're great entry games for gamers, great games to play with friends, to play with your girlfriend who's never played a video game, or your boyfriend, anything like that. They're really good entry games, and they're a lot of fun, really easy, just fun experience. That's all it is. It doesn't end stress. It's not anything complicated. It's just a game. E3 will be digital this year, and honestly I think E3 is dead. Last year I went to it, 2018, was probably the best year, but right now, one, they need to be digital because of COVID. It's still happening. Two, I think now that game developers can know that they can throw on their own consoles and their own events, they don't really need E3 anymore. Dota 2, which, side note, the Dota 2 animation came out on Netflix, and it was actually surprisingly good. As someone who's never played Dota and doesn't know anything about Dota lore, I really enjoyed it. It's done and animated by the same studio that did Legend of Korra and Boondock, so of course the animation's good, but the story actually wasn't that bad at all. So I recommend checking that out if you're looking for something to watch. Now, back to actual Dota 2. Dota 2, they're doing a cleanup. They're trying to get new players back in the game and a little bit better. I think Smurfs will be banned. There's new player rewards. There's a glossary coming, new player mode. They're really trying to get away that barrier of skill when it comes to MOBAs. That's the problem with MOBAs. You can't really try them out like Fortnite and be like, oh, I like this or I don't like this. You really have to put in a couple months of work to figure out what you like and what you don't like, because the skill ceiling is so high. Just the skill ceiling to enter for new players is so high that it's very difficult to play these games. So I thought it was really cool when I saw Dota kind of implementing what like Final Fantasy 14 has when new players enter, is that that this person's a new player and maybe you want to help them out, and really just like they can learn the game and get on their own footing before they enter the major leagues with everyone else, and then you can start flaming them. You can give them the benefit of the doubt. Banning Smurfs, returning players, all this, I think this is great for Dota. As a League player, I would like to see more activated things from League and Riot doing these things, because they really just say they're going to do these things and then they don't do them. Xbox insiders in alpha, skip in alpha today, flight simulators. So Xbox Gold members won't need Xbox Gold to talk on all chat and use looking for game groups. Really good. Xbox has been making some really big moves lately, especially pushing Xbox Game Pass. We've had an episode about that, so definitely check that one out in the description below. I'll put that one in there if you haven't seen that episode, or you can look for it in last year's season. The Switch is predicted to have a new release this year. It's supposed to be released later this year. 7 inches, 720p screen. It's supposed to be DLSS equipped, better CPU and memory with a lot more games. It's supposed to be the high definition, super Switch that's supposed to come out this year. The Switch has been one of the most selling consoles, especially in Japan. It's huge. As much as I wish I would play mine more, I just enjoy having one just because it is revolutionary in the fact that it is a piece of technology that was never developed like this, and Nintendo did a great job on how they did it. So if you don't have a Switch, just pick one up. I think you'll enjoy it. Even if you're a casual gamer, you'll enjoy it. It's a really cool device. It's like having the first iPhone. Then we have EA Gate. This was some big news that happened about a month ago, and I want to just go over it because essentially what happens is EA employees were giving out FIFA All-Star or FIFA Ultimate players or tickets to other people when they paid them. So what do you do is I would pay a FIFA employee or an EA employee, and then they would give me the FIFA Ultimate player that I want. If you don't know what FIFA Ultimate is, it is essentially EA's big money maker. This is where most of their money comes from. Microtransactions of FIFA players. FIFA is their most popular game around the world, and FIFA Ultimate is the most popular game mode where you're paying microtransactions to get these players and build your ultimate FIFA team. So really funny that they shut down FIFA Ultimate for this because their employees were trying to make a buck off of it. I think that's just hilarious. EA Gate is what we all called it. Sad news for us PS3 owners. The PlayStation Store for PS3 and PS Vita will officially close this summer. They will no longer support it, which kind of sucks. This means that you won't get any update for PS3 games. This means that you won't you can't download any more PS3 games, anything like that, or PS Vita games, which is really sad just because that era of consoles had so many weird games. It was the era that, when we were getting movie games, like Tron Legacy came out as a movie, and then you get the Tron Legacy video game, you get the Sopranos video game, you get all these types of spin-off video games, and they're just piles of just random shit like all over the place. And that PlayStation is closing down their store and no longer supporting that is going to be really sad, and it's going to be a problem because the problem right now, one of the reasons why I like Xbox is they're not leaving these games behind. There's a lot of old games that need to be archived right now, which, as I've talked about in the past, we need to put them on the computer. But anyway, with that out of the news, that's pretty much all the news I want to go over this week and over the last couple months that I think are noteworthy. We'll start to really ramp up really soon, especially when June and May start to come around, because then we get into kind of announcement era where E3 usually happens, and that's when things start to get very hectic for the gaming community. So let's get into esports. First off, Overwatch League. Overwatch League hasn't started yet. It starts Friday, April 16th at 2 p.m. with the first teams being Houston Outlaws versus Dallas Fuel. So look forward to that. We'll talk about more Overwatch League, what the results were next week. But Overwatch League starts Friday. Standings for ESL Pro League. This just ended actually yesterday, funny enough. And who won? Well, in round of 32 of playoffs, we had Fury versus Fun Plus, and Furia won. G2 beat Team Liquid. Vitarius beat ENCE, and Complete. It can't be Navi, and then they moved up, and then Complete won, and then in the lower bracket, and then Complete lost to Ninja, and then Ninja lost to Gambit. Gambit went to finals, and then Fury won, beat G2. Fury beat Alistar. Fury beat Heroic beat Fury, and then Heroic won it all in the finals yesterday, which actually I saw a clip of the actual final round, and this dude clutched it. It was an incredible clip. I actually think you guys should go look for it, find it. It was something else, something inhumane in the pinnacle of esports. Me watching it, generally I don't watch a lot of CSGO or really other leagues in general, but when I watch a lot of League, and saw that clip, I was like, I wish we had players that fucking good, because oh my god, that clip was insane and what he pulled off. So congratulations to Heroic for winning. In League of Legends, finally, we're going to start with NA since they're over, and we're going to go all the way back since we have a lot of months to cover. We're going to start with the 2020 lock-in tournament. It was basically a preseason tournament that NA has, and NA has honestly a terrible format, I think. Now I really don't like it. I think it puts us behind even more than we already are. But basically, it was a tournament that didn't really mean anything. Everyone got to fuck off. It was just kind of a test the water tournament. As we can see, we're going to qualifiers. 100 Thieves beat Immortals. They moved up to semifinals. Cloud9 beat TSM. They moved up to semifinals. EG beat Golden Guardians. EG moved up to semifinals. Team Liquid beat FlyQuest. Team Liquid moved up to semifinals, and then C9 beat 100 Thieves. TL beat EG, and TL won in the finals. They won the lock-in tournament, which again, it didn't really mean anything, but that pushed him over to Spring Split. And in Spring Split, well, it was good. It was we had some good games and a lot of bad games. Right here, we have C9 was at the top of the ladder, followed by TSM, then Team Liquid, then 100 Thieves, then Dignitas and Evil Geniuses. Immortals, FlyQuest, Golden Counterlogic Gaming, and Golden Guardians did not make playoffs. And then from there, because our season now just continuously goes, like it just carries over, and we're all playing on a patch behind too. So now we're in basically playoffs, which they call the mid-season intervention here in NA, and we're playing on 11.5, where everyone's else playing like on 11.6. So we're patched behind everyone else, and the MSI patch historically is 0.8, so 11.8 is probably going to be MSI patch, and so we're historically really far behind. In round 1, we had C9 versus 100 Thieves. C9 moved to round 2. Then we had TSM versus Team Liquid. TSM or Team Liquid moved to round 2 in the winners, and then in losers, TSM versus EG. TSM moved to round 2, and 100 Thieves versus Dig. 100 Thieves moved to round 2. In losers, TSM won. They moved up to round 3 in losers. In round 2, we had C9 versus TL. C9 won. They went immediately to finals, and TL had to go place losers against TSM. TL won against TSM, and then in the finals yesterday, we had C9 versus Team Liquid, where Team Liquid definitely gave C9 a runner for their money. But honestly, C9 just played a little bit, tiny bit better in my opinion, and C9 won the finals. So they're the mid-season champions. That's cool. And that's up with NA. They get to go to MSI, which is mid-season intervention. In LEC, now LEC didn't have all that, bullshit that NA had. They just went straight into it. In spring season, they played it, and it was G2 first, followed by Rogue, Mad Lions, Sklako 4, Fnatic, and SK. Misfits, Excel, Astrals, and Team Vitality did not make playoffs. Cool, I didn't actually watch as much European as I want. Then they went to spring playoffs. Simple, easy. In round 1, we had G2 versus Sklako 4. G2 won. They got pushed up into semifinals. And then we had Rogue versus Mad. Mad won, and they got pushed up into semifinals. In losers, we had Fnatic versus SK. Fnatic won, and then Fnatic versus Sklako 4. Sklako 4 won, and then we had Sklako 4 versus Rogue. Rogue won. Rogue versus G2. G2 won. And then G2 versus Mad Lion, of course, I already told you the results of that. Mad Lion won. And in the finals, which also happened yesterday, Mad Lions won. Beat versus Rogue also gave them a run for their money, going to the best of 5 games. And it was actually a lot more entertaining. I caught the last game, the 5th game. It was a lot more entertaining than the entirety of the LCS's broadcast. Now in LCK, we have spring playoffs, or spring season, and Damwon, of course, world's champions of 2020. They are in first place, followed by Genji, then Hanwha Life, Chovy, T1, Dragon X, and then Nongshim Red Force, and then KT, Live Sandbox, Afrika Freaks, and Friedrich Bond did not make it into playoffs. Now, this is also the first year that Korea has franchised, so this is their franchise league too, which is really interesting. Then in playoffs, Hanwha Life Esports versus Nongshim Red Force. Hanwha Life won. They moved to semifinals. Chovy, where they lost to, of course, the champions, Damwon. In losers, we had T1 versus Dragon X. T1 beat Dragon X, and then they versed Genji, where Genji beat T1. And then we had Genji versus Damwon, where Damwon 3-0 Genji, and we will get to see Showmaker, Khan, Ghost all at MSI. Look forward to that, because I'm really happy to see that team play again since Worlds. In LPL, which I believe is actually still going on, their spring playoffs. Here they go. It's their round. We're gonna go rapid fire. This is winners top, and then we're gonna go losers second. We have Rare Atom versus IG. Rare Atom won. Fun Plus versus Rare. Fun Plus won. Fun Plus versus JDD. Fun Plus won. RNG versus Fun Plus. Fun Plus won. Fun Plus versus Edward Gaming. Fun Plus won, and now Fun Plus is in the finals. In terms of losers, we have Sunning versus LNG. Sunning won. Sunning versus Team WE. Sunning won. Sunning versus Top Esports. Top Esports won. Now Top Esports went to go fight Edward Gaming. Edward Gaming won. They went up to, of course, fight Fun Plus Phoenix in semifinals. And in losers, we had RNG versus Top Esports. RNG won, where now we have to see a best of 5 between EG and RNG to see who will have that final spot in finals to go against Fun Plus Phoenix. And Fun Plus Phoenix is the team that won Worlds the year before in 2019, I believe. So maybe they'll be at MSI, or we'll see EG be at MSI, or we'll see RNG. No Uzi, sadly, but they'll be at MSI. So that's what's up. And what is MSI? Last but not least, before we end the show, let's talk about MSI. MSI is the mid-season intervention. 12 teams participate. Viego's disabled because he's buggy. Teams are drawn into 3 groups based on seeding. Double round robin matches are best of 1. Top 2 teams for each group advance to stage 2. Double round robin matches are best of 1. Top 4 teams advance to stage 3. Single elimination bracket matches are best of 5. So currently the teams that will be playing for LPL is to be decided, as we just discussed. For LEC, which is Europe, they have Mad Lions. For LCK, which is Korea, they have Damwon Gaming. For LCS, which is NA, we have C9. For PCS, is to be decided. Vietnam to be decided. CIS to be decided. Latin America is Infinity Esports. Turkey to be decided. Brazil to be decided. Japan, it's Detonation Focus Me. And for Oceania, which, why is Oceania still a thing? That's interesting, since their league scene crashed, but they still get a spot. That's very, very interesting. It's Pentinent.gg. The groups. Stage 1, Group 1 will be the LPL team, the Vietnam team, the Low Contenders League, and then Pentination GG. And then in Group B, we had Mad Lions, the Pacific Championship League, the Turkish Championship, and the Kampong Brazil Dilo Championship. In Group C, which is the only group that's fleshed out, we have Damwon, Cloud9, Infinity Esports, and Detonation Focus Me. So if you're an EU fan, it's gonna be cool. If you're a Chinese fan, it's gonna be cool. If you're LPL fan, it's gonna be cool. If you're now, if you're in Group C and you're an NA fan, we're going against last year's world champions who are still dominating their own league. So I expect this to be not too fun for us to watch overall. But that's basically the esports of this year. That's what's happened. That's the news. That's all it. That's what's going on. We covered it all. A lot of news. Ooh. All right. Well, let's wrap up the show. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the first episode of this new season of It's Not a Sport. If you leave a like, a comment, subscribe, that really helps us out. Make sure to follow us on all our social media. It's Not a Sport to you for Twitter updates. It's Not a Sport to you for our Instagram. Also, you can check out our TikTok as well. All those links are in the description below. You can check out our previous shows all on our YouTube channel. You can also watch the VOD of this on the YouTube channel, where I actually show what I'm talking about on screen. So definitely check that out if you're listening to us on any of our podcast platforms, whether that's SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcasts. So definitely check out the YouTube as well, and our website, itsnotasport.com. Thank you for listening to this week's show, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.